Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the Board of the Town of Monroe, Orange County, New York, on April 4th, 2016 at 7:30 p.m. at the Town of Monroe Senior Center, 101 Mine Road, Monroe, New York, 10950. The Town Board of the Town of Monroe is considering adoption of a local law implementing a 3-month moratorium on the development of residential property of the unincorporated Town of Monroe, New York. The proposed local law would implement a moratorium for 3 months on the issuance of building permits and upon the Town Board, Planning Board, and Zoning Board of Appeals for processing, hearing, rehearing, approving, or signing new or pending preliminary or final site plan, preliminary or final subdivision, special permit, variance, or other land use application or permit which relates directly or indirectly to residential construction, including but not limited to any grading permit, erosion or sediment control permit, wetland permit, sewer connection permit, flood plan development permit, water connection permit, which may be granted in association with the residential construction. The proposed local law is available at the Town Clerk's office at 1465 Orange Turnpike, Monroe, New York, 10950, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. through 4 p.m. by the order of the Town of Monroe, Mary Ellen Beams, Town Clerk.
Can we move forward with public comment for the, this is for the public, this isn't for us.
So
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to make a motion.
You can't.
This is a public hearing.
I will second that motion.
This is a public hearing. Let's
I'm not
hear
gonna
from
call
the
the
public. This is not for us to make statements.
So here we have the statement that I'm going to finish, and I'm almost ready.
I'll call the question. All those in favor?
No, I have to call the question. I have to call the question. I have to call the question, not you.
Sorry, Tony, you can't.
New York State Town Law, Section 272A, defines a comprehensive plan as the materials that identify the goals, objectives, principles, guidelines, policy standards, devices, and instruments for the immediate and long-range protection, enhancement, growth, and development of the town located outside the limits of any incorporated village or city. So the plan applies specifically to the unincorporated Town of Monroe. What is the significance of an adopted plan? All land use regulations, the subdivision regulations, the site plan regulations, the zoning, must be in accordance with the comprehensive plan. As part of our evaluation, we consider the following. Have economic and social forces and trends rendered assumptions or recommendations obsolete that are embodied in the plan? Were the recommendations in the 2005 comprehensive plan, which was adopted in 2008, implemented? Is Chapter 57 zoning of the Code of the Town of Monroe consistent with the adopted 2005 plan update, which is required by law? Is it a valid representation of the community's aspirations? And the zoning which implements it, does it reflect current modern environmental engineering and planning standards and regulations, including sustainability and resiliency? As we expressed at the town board's prior meeting, it's our conclusion that the comprehensive plan needs to be reviewed and updated, and the zoning must be reviewed and updated to be consistent with the revised plan. The following are but several reasons why we believe the update is necessary. Number one, the master plan's own recommendations require it be updated. New York State town law says that the town board shall provide as a component of such proposed comprehensive plan maximum intervals at which the adopted plan shall be reviewed. The plan specifically says, as noted in section 2 of this document, there should be regularly scheduled review taking place typically on a 5 to 10 year basis. Given the development potential and relatively limited availability of land in the town of Monroe, this plan recommends that the next review should take place within a 5-year time frame. That was 2008 that it was adopted, so we're obviously beyond the 5 years. Socioeconomic trends have changed. It was written at the height of the housing market bubble before the national recession. The growth trends in the unincorporated area have not been realized, which has implications for land use, including housing needs. The 2005 plan is incomplete. Plans customarily include description of the various areas of the town, from conservation residential to corridor commercial, However, in this plan, it fails to include any map of where these areas are located, which creates confusion in implementing the policies. There was.
I represent concerned members of the Hasidic Jewish community, as well as developers in the town of Monroe, in opposition to this moratorium. The proposed moratorium targets my clients in various building projects that are in the late stages of planning and development in order to prevent Hasidic Jews from moving into the town of Monroe.
Folks, please.
The fact that this moratorium currently targets already approved and late-stage development plans underscores the fact that it's actually to stop buildings from going up and not to revisit the town's plan. Should this moratorium go through, especially as it's specifically targeted as severely restricting housing sizes and prohibiting accessory uses that target and fence out the Hasidic community, my clients are prepared, actually they will have no alternative, but to pursue and vindicate their rights to the full extent of the law.
I'm the village attorney for the village of Curious Joel, and I've been asked to present the village's position with respect to the proposed moratorium local law. So the need is there, and if they can't be accommodated within the village because we're not allowed to have more space to provide for them, obviously they will overflow into the town. And the village will support their having housing opportunities within the town. If they're not permitted to be within the village, they need to live somewhere. The Village of Curious Joel does believe that the zoning in Monroe should change. There should be provision for a greater array of housing, more housing opportunities for those who need it. So, you know, our belief is if you're not going to allow for annexation, allow for the opportunity to build in a smart growth density pattern, then you're going to have to provide the opportunity for people elsewhere in the town. So the village government opposes the proposed annexation, and we just ask that you be looking at the zoning with an eye to providing appropriate opportunities for housing for the people. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Lorraine Moaning, Village of Monroe. I don't see a lot of harm that will come from doing this moratorium. However, you can write the tightest code ever, anticipate any and all scenarios, and then a builder or developer can just go before the ZBA and request a variance. Now, if you think that the town board is dysfunctional, folks, go to a ZBA meeting. It is a disaster. When the board does file paperwork on time, yay, often it doesn't. And when it does, it just becomes a paper shuffling rubber stamp of a board. Questions are seldom asked by the board. Site visits are infrequent. If the public does not ask the question is not asked. And once a variance is granted, there goes your code. It's ultimately rewritten by this quasi-judicial body. So you need to look at the ZBA if you're going to look at it.
Mary Tossi, Village of Monroe. I'd like to let you know I think we do need a moratorium. I think we need it immediately, if not long ago. I think we need it to target the conflicting zoning codes that we have, not to target any particular group of people. We have some codes that define the desired, allowed, and sustainable zones, conflicting with others that allow us to double what the first one's plan. It just doesn't make any sense.
I find the speaker, number one, was highly offensive, to throw around the religious card and the threats. I don't believe that this is an issue. What I believe the issue is road infrastructure, services lack of, buildings out of control, build now, worry later is an issue, water shortages.
It really is about sustainability, folks. They're not making any more new land, okay? They're not making any more new water resources. They're not making any more new air resources. We got to sustain what we have. And if some group has a problem with population, that's not our problem. We got to learn to live within our resources.
According to New York state law, a land use moratorium, well actually this is according to the Department of State, it's in layperson's terms. A land use moratorium is a local enactment which temporarily suspends a landowner's right to obtain development approvals while the community considers and potentially adopts changes to its comprehensive plan and/or its land use regulations to address new circumstances not addressed by current laws. Basically, a moratorium is a lawful act designed for the purpose of maintaining the rule of law under the guidance of honest, transparent government. Sometimes, however, elected officials act in bad faith. They use lawful processes to attain unlawful, selfish, or immoral results. This is not the purpose of good government, whether or not these bad actors are in the majority or in the minority. For several months, we've heard disgusting rhetoric from our supervisor and from one of our councilmen. Their language is designed to incite the good people of Monroe. They want us to rally behind their false flag of division and hate. They want us to act out in anger based on their false narratives of community takeovers, loopholes, and mini villages. We will not take the bait. Mr. Doles, Mr. McQuaid, we know all of the code words by now. The dog whistle politics is transparent. Your false concern and empathy when you speak of, quote, the other side of 17, quote, segregating zoning, annexation, quote, compromise, and, quote, containing them. Biblical terms such as Exodus and the buzzword diaspora or diaspora. And then today we had Mr. Nickel with the threat of people are going to grow up and they're going to need a place to live anyway. They're coming. That was the message. I believe you wish to place our town government in peril, resulting in legal action that will finally get the power mongers who put you here what they want to the tune of 507 acres. This too will not work. Yes, the town board will pass laws. No, not everyone will be happy. However, one thing is certain. We, the people of Monroe, will not permit you, Mr. Doles and Mr. McQuaid, to affix any dubious purposes to the passage of any resolutions or laws in this town. Thank you.
His words stated that everyone should be able to live anywhere they wish, and I think you should all agree. But he also stated that our natural resources are not limitless. When the quality of life starts to deteriorate, growth has to stop. We now have an opportunity to do this right. Let's take this opportunity and do it right.
The future well-being of Monroe for every citizen, contrary to the first speaker, no matter your race, creed, or religion, depends upon it. I support this moratorium and would even go further as to request a 6-month moratorium, or reserve the option to extend the 90 days based on the findings and professional recommendations of the newly hired planning firm. We deserve the best so we can figure out our future as a cohesive group. And with the newly organized board, I think we can start this process with this moratorium. Thank you.
Long offense to the broad strokes painted of any community looking to take pause for a moment and ensure that the town zoning and building codes are adequate in protecting the environment and resources it possesses for all.
And I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of my client, BMG Monroe 1 LLC, the developer of the Smith Farm subdivision. Proposed moratorium. Now, it's our position, our base position, that the proposed residential moratorium ordinance should exempt any project that has received conditional final approval from the planning board, without exception.
Sorry. My name is Pat Shea. I and my family have been here in Monroe for over 100 years. We owned Shea Meadows, what is now known as Shea Meadows. And I'm here to support the moratorium. I'm not sure about a full moratorium, but at least a partial moratorium. So I just have one fact to put forward. The buildings and the permits and the development on the Rye Hill Road corridor are all based on a study that was done in 2002. The Rye Hill Road corridor environmental study. That study is obviously quite old and irrelevant at this time. Right now, the town of Monroe is violating its own specs on minimum road standards with respect to Rye Hill Road. The lack of shoulders, the width of the road, the conditions of the road, winding and so on and so forth, that is another fact for you to consider on the plan. So how you could approve another 300 houses and that kind of traffic on Rye Hill Road is unconscionable. That's all I have to say.
Another thing that I know that at the beginning of the meeting, Mr. Cardone and Mike stopped Mr. Knowles as he was going through his thing about all the people that were invited. I do know for a fact that Mr. Brabenec was not invited, nor was Mr. Skoufis.
Yes.
So I just want to make that clear. They were not invited, and so I feel at this point you've been lied to. But that's all I have to say. I feel.
I'm Rich Froelich, I'm a 30-year resident of Monroe. I really didn't plan to talk tonight. The first gentleman that talked prompted me to come up. I'm a Jewish member of this community, and I am appalled at constantly hearing about anti-Semitism, and that's the reason that the town My father died in 1962. My mother left with 3 young children, a Jewish widow. She didn't look to the community for help. She did what she had to do. She went out and got a job. She didn't live off the backs of others. She didn't impose her will on other people. In the Torah, that's what it says a Jew does. A Jew fend for himself. Okay, and I'm appalled again at the remarks of some of the people supporting, going against the annexation. The moratorium. I'm for the moratorium. It should be longer. Thank you.
Make a motion that we keep the public hearing open until April 18th. There's obviously, whether it was bad tonight, gives people some more time to come and comment, and there's other considerations that we have to take into account. So my motion is that we keep this open until the 18th.
I'll second it.
Call the question then?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. We're going to take a 10-minute recess while George gets his next film together, and we have time to